I'm here to talk to you today about a perfectly normal subject, growing worms in your basement. Follow along, I'll cover everything you need to know about culturing blackworms at home. Blackworm colonies are extremely easy to rear. You really only need a few things. I'm using a 20-gallon tank, a very small amount of gravel at the bottom, and then an air pump and an air stone. That's all you need except for the blackworms. If you know where to find blackworms, you can go outside and grab some and start your own culture. I ordered mine from Eastern Aquatics. I think I'll leave a link in the description. They came looking super healthy, this fat bag of worms. I will say that it's kind of pricey to order a large amount, but I didn't want to start my culture and take a couple months to grow that. I wanted to start feeding my fish right away. So I ordered a quarter pound, which is something like 60 bucks worth of worms, but that also lasts a long time. And if you follow my advice today, you can stretch that out to infinity and beyond by kind of breeding these worms. Yeah, I'll tell you more about that as we go on. After adding water to the tank, you want to let it sit for maybe 20 minutes to acclimate to room temperature. Float the worms. Once they've been acclimated to the tank or room temperature, maybe 10 minutes, then you can release them. If you want, it's never a bad idea to rinse these guys in a sieve. Personally, I just released them in here. I wasn't too worried because this bag seemed really healthy and it didn't smell bad at all. The two biggest things that I would consider when you first setting up your blackworm culture is that you don't want them to be blasted with heat. Cooler is better. Other thing that you want to be sure to include is aeration. There's no point in adding a filter in here. You're going to be sloshing everything around. Just a simple air stone in the middle of the tank works just fine. Okay, so we got our worms in the container. Now it's time to harvest them. Very easy process. All you got to do is take one of these little turkey basters or pipettes or something, as long as it's got a large enough hole, and then you kind of wriggle it around the bottom where the worms hang out, and you just suck them up. Now, if the hole of your pipette is larger than the material you're using, the gravel, then it's going to suck that gravel up. So it's important that you take some sort of tool, sucker tool, that's not going to suck your gravel up, because that's going to really drive you nuts when you're trying to catch worms for your fish. It's nice if you can just do it really quickly without having to draw this process out forever. Now that we got these worms in this little container, all we're going to do is throw them in the tank. If you want, you can rinse them off. I know some people worry about like bacterial buildup inside these worm colonies. It's not really something that I am overly concerned with. Initially, I was feeding my discus worms pretty much every day, like once in the morning, and then I'd feed them some beef heart or mysis shrimp, frozen stuff later in the day. Really wanted to fatten them up. But as time has gone on, I've kind of weaned them off of a consistent diet of blackworms, because a 20-gallon tank isn't enough to rear blackworms on the magnitude of feeding 10 discus every day, especially as these guys are growing. So it's kind of become more of a treat. They get blackworms once or twice a week, and then every now and then I'll throw some in for my rainbows and apistogramma. Those guys absolutely go crazy for these blackworms. So what do we have to do in order to take care of our blackworm colonies? Well, there's really two things. First of all, you need to feed them. I personally prefer chlorella powder. It's a little bit higher in protein content than like spirulina. And so all you got to do is take a little bit of this powder, really a small amount. A little bit goes a long way. And then you mix it in with water. You want this stuff to be nice and green, and then slosh it in your tank. You can give them either a couple hours or overnight to consume all of this green water stuff. And do a big old water change. When it comes time for a water change, what I like to do is take water from my display tank above. I fill up a few buckets, and then I just dump those buckets into my 20-gallon, really slosh it around. Make sure you agitate the heck up out of that sediment, cloudy water. And then I use a pump I connect my 50-foot hose and just drain it elsewhere. I like to drain into buckets first. That way I can check to see that no worms got sucked in. Fact of the matter is, having a tank on the floor doesn't make water changes easy. So that's why I use the pump. And then it's important that you do let those buckets of water sit for 20 minutes or so if you're taking it from a tank with a large temperature difference. So the discus tank up there, keep it in the 83 range, whereas the tank below there is probably in the low 60s, maybe even a little lower than that. It's on my basement floor, which is concrete, and that cools off pretty good. You should be getting into this habit of doing a water change maybe once a week or so. Like I mentioned, you'll know if you've waited too long, and you'll have some serious regrets about waiting too long. I talked earlier about these worms and their reproductive cycle. It's not easy to get them to reproduce sexually. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, it's nothing weird. Like, it's not what this channel's about. Sexual reproduction is just when two individuals meet and then they share genetic material, and then their offspring is basically mix and match of both parents. Asexual reproduction is what these worms can do in your tank. Sexual reproduction is not likely for your worms to do in captivity, or at least in like such a small container under your tank. I know that it's very challenging to achieve this, but what we can achieve is asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is just when an organism basically splits itself and then both halves grow. Now, these worms aren't going to split themselves. We got to do the splitting for them. And all you got to do is take your hand and slosh around in this tank. You want to move and agitate the gravel, kind of grumble stuff up. That way, you have a chance of splitting some of these worms. Now, you do want to be careful. Even though you split a worm twice, each half will grow. There is a limit to this, and I don't really know what exactly that limit is. Maybe you could split the worms into three or four. I don't know. You definitely should not expect that your worms will grow if you put them in a blender and then get a million pieces of worm bits. Each one of those bits is not going to turn into a new worm. They'll just rot and decompose into that stinky, nasty worm water I was telling you about. So make sure that you're at least a little bit gentle when you're going through there. You don't want to mangle them up too bad. And this is really important if you want to extend the life of your culture. If you don't do this, your worms will not reproduce and you won't have a long lasting colony. So, this is very important. I do try and do this every 2 weeks. I don't like doing it too often because I want to give them a chance to grow. If you stress them out constantly, then you're splitting smaller worms into smaller worms into smaller worms that might not heal, and then some of them are dying. And then when you have dirty water, they're even less likely to heal. So it's just kind of a negative feedback cycle when you do it like that. So wait a couple weeks in between agitations. Why am I taking the time to rear blackworms at home when there are so many types of frozen and freeze dried foods available at the fish store? I mean, I am a little bit crazy when it comes to my fish, but there's more to it than that. So, live foods can be a terrific way to encourage more delicate, picky eaters. For instance, these discus over here, when I purchased them, they were having a hard time accepting foods, and these blackworms were a complete game changer. They really fattened them up really quick. Blackworms are also chock full of nutrition. These guys got about 65% protein, 10% fat, lots of healthy fatty acids, omega-3 EPAs and DHAs. There's a little bit of carbs, maybe 10% in there. It's also rich in minerals like iron, zinc, and calcium, tons of essential amino acids. It's been shown to improve immune system functions. They're a completely natural source of food. Even when you buy frozens and freeze drieds at the fish store, they're going to have other things added to them. And while some of that might be good, like extra minerals and vitamins and that sort of stuff, I do think it's important for everyone us and fish included, to eat completely natural stuff. I know I feel a lot of healthier when I eat natural foods, like I can see the ingredients in there. It's not a bunch of processed stuff like fast food and things, frozen meals, kind of equivalent to fish flakes, which are a good way to supplement their diet, but should not be the exclusive thing you feed them. It's entertaining to watch your fish hunt down live foods. It stimulates them mentally. It gives them something to do, like a natural behavior, what they'd be doing in the wild. And then it also encourages spawning and breeding. That's all I got for rearing a live blackworm culture. Have you ever kept live foods at home? What's your favorite live food? Let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to hear. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you did learn something today, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, all that stuff we always say to do really does help. And I put a lot of effort into this channel. If you enjoyed or learned something from it, I'd appreciate your support. Buy something from an affiliate link or a free way to support me is just to watch some other content. Thanks so much. Until next time, see ya.